coming up on another exciting installment of That Was a Show? Partners was a show. This short-lived sitcom is about two young architects in San Francisco, Bob, Jon Cryer, and Owen, Tate Donovan. Off the top, Owen gets engaged to Alicia, Maria Pitillo, and his best friend Bob competes for attention as something of a third wheel. It's a fairly standard hangout show about dating and friendship dynamics with vague references to work, but with slightly saltier language because it was on Fox. It's almost like a West Coast version of Friends, with a rotating cast of guest stars featuring the likes of Lisa Edelstein, Kathy Griffin, and even Jennifer Anniston. Brynn, Aaron, and Barry try to draw up a blueprint of why this one didn't last. We grew up during peak sitcom, Seinfeld, Friends, The Fresh Prince, but those shows were diamonds in the rough. This podcast is not about those diamonds. It's about the rough. Some sitcoms were briefly popular in their time. Some were canceled almost immediately. You probably won't recognize most of these, and you'll ask, that was a show?
That was a show?
The podcast about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, starring
Brynn Byrne,
Aaron Yeger,
And Andrew Helmer as Barry.
a Radio Gizmo production.
Let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's do a tight 70.
Yeah.
a tight 70.
All right. Now I just got to find the screen where your faces are. There it is.
Here we are.
There it is. Welcome
Hi.
to another episode of what is this called show?
That was a show?
Ah, yes, that was a show. I believe this is our 71st episode. How about that?
Wild.
That's a lot.
I can't believe, can't believe
That is,
we've committed to this, guys.
That is commitment.
Yeah.
That is commitment, which many of the characters we've watched are afraid of. So, good for us. Good for us. How are you guys doing this week?
Okay. I mean, looking forward to, an extra day off because it's a long weekend here.
That it is.
So that'll be nice. It's a Sunday, and usually we record on Sundays and have to go back to the grind on Mondays, but not this week.
Usually we go straight from recording right into Sunday scaries.
Sunday scaries.
Yeah.
They often hit me maybe halfway through recording where I just start muttering to myself between things where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna.
Yeah. From the epic high of talking about a failed sitcom to the dreary low of worrying about the coming week.
Gonna have to do some meal prep. Oh man. If I go to bed now, I can just forget all about it. That's my Sunday scaries voice.
Oh man, it's interesting that your strategy is just go to bed. Mine is I'll stay up as long as I possibly can so that the weekend lasts longer. But that's never a good decision because then I'm tired the next day. So
I mean, all I'm really looking to do from the moment I wake up in the morning is go back to bed. So it's, I don't approach that I like how I'm talking like I'm ancient, but in my later years, I'm a real I'm a pretty early to bed guy now. Which is pretty funny because you've known me for so long.
Yeah,
I was
you've
always
never been that.
I was a night owl. I would be up till 4 a.m. Go to work still. Bright-eyed and not so bushy-tailed the next morning, but now I'm settling in. I'll have a cup of tea and a book, and then I'm like, oh, I'm kind of sleepy. I'm just gonna go to bed now. I was gonna ask you guys where you're at in watching Oscar stuff, but then my brain was like, oh, this episode's gonna come out on March 15th. So
it'll be
Oscars,
well after.
The Oscars will be behind us.
Yeah, I mean, we still have a lot to watch. Actually, unfortunately, there's.
Congratulations to
Yeah.
Which won the big award on
to insert movie title here, which swept the awards to the dismay of insert audience demographic here.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen most Best Picture nominations, but there's still a few that are still, like, I still need to watch.
You guys finished Oppenheimer yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we finally finished Oppenheimer. Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
Honestly, it was better than I was expecting.
Yeah. It was quite good.
I watched it again this week.
I thought the ending was quite profound, actually.
Yeah, it was well done. I feel like that's gonna win. I feel like that's
I would have thought it was. I mean, again, it's funny because we're probably talking. It probably did win a few days ago. Everybody listening, but like it, in the lead up, I feel like we're a little. I think it was a slam dunk gonna win for a long time, but over the last few months, there's been a few like kind of dark horses kind of jump to the.
Well, have they done I don't think they've done this, right? Where they're going to have a drama winner and a comedy winner.
That's never the Oscars.
That's never
that's Golden Globes.
That's the Globes. That's the Globes.
That's the Globes and the Emmys. But
the Globes also introduced this year. So the Globes do best drama, then it's musical or comedy, and then they did this year. I can't remember what they called it, but essentially like best like crowd pleaser.
Oh,
basically.
I remember this. Yeah. So
and it went to Barbie, so it was kind of like the first year they did it, and you're like, well, that could have won anyway, like for best comedy. Yeah. I feel like that award will probably like
my thing.
I don't understand that award.
It'll end up going to something like Avatar or something.
See,
like it'll go to a big It'll go to a box office winner that wasn't like an awards darling.
This is where I have to invoke the classic line from Mad Men. The Don Draper says, "That's what the money is for." I don't understand why "quote unquote" a box office achievement needs to have an award on top of it.
You know why though?
That is the award.
No,
they made the most money.
That's a great point and a great quote.
They had the most people talking about it on the internet. They had the most people eyeballs on it. That's an award. Fuck off.
That's what it's about. Actually, it's not about the box office. What it is about is, I think they're trying to bring it so maybe it's not as. Sorry, I'm muttering a lot. It's not as elitist.
I know what you're getting at.
This was the movie most people talked about this year, yada, yada, yada.
I know what you're getting at. Here's what it comes down to.
Why aren't you watching the award shows?
Here's what it comes down to. Award shows are not just about doing what's right for the various films and artists that are theoretically nominated. It's what will bring in ratings on TV.
Correct.
That's what you're getting at. And so when... if a movie like Poor Things were to win Best Picture, maybe it deserves it. But the problem is 1% of the TV audience has even heard of it, and 0.1% has seen it. And so that's not a way to get people to come back and watch the Oscars again next year.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
That's exactly what it is.
If you're going to, I don't even really like awards for film, really. Like, I don't really love it because there's always stuff that gets like left out that really deserves it. So it's like, to me, it's like, if you're going to do it, why don't you be freaking elitist about it and give it to the things that are, that aren't getting the flowers from the box office, that aren't,
let's remember, it's the Globes. So no one
cares. It's true.
The Globes is trying really hard to kind of get back what they took a pretty big hit to their
they kind of blew themselves up, and we weren't sure if they would even come back as an award. But even just going back to the Oscars, like, let's remember, the Oscars are a marketing spectacle for show business, right? So to your point, the art house films that don't make the money, they can win the Palme d'Or at Cannes.
Okay,
right?
Fine.
So there is that angle, which is that there are all of these film festivals and all of these other like critics sort of things where films like that get reviewed. versus like the Oscars has always kind of been about like being like the Super Bowl of movies.
Yeah.
Like
It's spectacle.
It's spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, it's as you know, I've always enjoyed watching the awards, even if half the movies I ended up forgetting, you know, by the time the next year rolls around. But the whole thing is, you know, it's let's all celebrate movies, you know, and all that fun.
My
nonsense.
personal feeling is that like if a movie can capture the attention of a very large audience while doing it artfully, then I think that's the ultimate like thing that's deserving of an Oscar in a sense, because if you can actually overlap both of those things, then that's like the ultimate achievement. My big and one could argue that both, for instance, Barbie and Oppenheimer stand out as movies that are huge blockbusters that actually achieved their success artfully in interesting and unique ways. So I would argue that those are both kind of deserving in that Venn diagram that overlaps both art house and entertainment spectacle. But my grievance has always been that comedies always get kicked to the curb. And there's always
for me, horror movies get kicked to the curb.
There's always
oftentimes you'll have a best performance hiding in one of those movies, like your Tony Collette's and whatnot.
So basically you've always had kind of a mainstream drama genre bias in these awards, and as such, like a movie like Oppenheimer is by far sort of slanted toward being most likely to win because it, you know, it's a movie everyone's heard of. A lot of people saw it. It was done artfully, but it is very squarely in the mainstream drama, historical drama sort of realm.
Ticks the boxes.
Ticks those boxes. And Barbie, which you could argue was like just as big of an achievement on both the like spectacle side and the like creativity side, right? Is like it might win, but it's less likely to win. And it's more because of genre reasons than because of the like art versus entertainment sort of issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is now a podcast about movies.
You know what did not win any awards, and I'm not fact checking that, is the 1995 to 96 television show Partners, starring Jon Cryer and Tate Donovan and Maria Pitillo. I don't think that won any awards. And that's what this podcast is all about. We're going to talk about, you know, the little guy. The little, you know, the little sitcom who wasn't even eligible for an Academy Award because it's a sitcom, and that's not what those are for. Segue.
Hard segue. Nice. Very nice.
Partners was a show. This blandly, somewhat likable series focused on three professional San Francisconians, San Frannies, people who live in San Francisco, professional ones at that. It was Maria Pitillo's Alicia and Tate Donovan's Owen are a couple on their way to the altar, and Jon Cryer's Bob is the third-wheel best friend constantly inserting himself into the relationship. Hijinks ensue? The series was created by Jeff Greenstein and Jeff Strauss and aired on NBC for one season between 1995 and 1996. Look at me go.
Sorry. I thought this was a Fox show.
No.
Didn't it? Are we sure about that?
No, we're not. I mean, I had a I was pretty confident.
I just remember seeing something on the IMDb poster that said Fox.
Here. Yeah, it was Fox. I just assumed because
it has a very NBC vibe.
This is an okay, all right. Oh,
well, you know, we
just take that last part.
No. We're not retaking. We're proving our journalistic integrity here by the level of fact checking vigor that happens.
All right, audience. Sometimes we're lacking, but at least one of us is on the ball. Some of us, maybe half saw a picture of it and we're like, I think it said Fox on it. And some of us were like, this feels like an NBC show.
Honestly,
so I did my intro on vibes. Okay.
No. You're right. Let me say
vibes alone.
On vibes alone.
Vibes alone. This was an NBC show.
Gen Z of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was an NBC show that apparently aired on Fox.
Yeah. Let me say
there we go.
In defense of Barry and that approach, when I saw Fox in an image online for this show, I thought, that doesn't seem right. This feels more like an NBC show. And I think that's also because there's the Aniston cameo.
Yeah.
But also it's a Gen X hangout show.
Yeah.
And they were the ones who did that. They were
trying to do their version of it, obviously.
So I guess this was Fox brutally ripping off that style.
Friends is called Friends and this is Partners. So it's even the title is
almost a synonym.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because I guess right off the bat I would say is this show's fine. It's completely fine. Everybody's working. The writing's not bad. Some of the performances up and down tonally, but maybe on NBC this would have worked. I don't know, right? It's
maybe the tone was off for
I've
Fox.
seen worse. Yeah, it's certainly not as risque as a Fox show, although there is one joke in the second episode we covered that I was pretty impressed to get past the censors.
I wonder what I'm not sure I remember the joke you're talking about, but save it for when we describe that episode.
All right.
Okay.
I want you to recount that.
So
it made me laugh just on the sheer oh shit, the audacity of that one is pretty. Yeah, all right. All right, let's talk about it.
Yeah,
a little,
what
though.
made you pick this one?
Oh, big fan of Partners going way back. Just love it. I love Jon Cryer. What a performer he is. No, you know why? I saw a picture of it. I do like Tate Donovan quite a bit. I love me some Jimmy Cooper.
Jimmy Cooper,
from the OC,
Fair.
as half of our audience knows and half of them doesn't. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole on this because I was I saw that Jennifer. So, all right, spoiler alert for episode 17, which is the second one we covered. Jennifer Anniston shows up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, he was on Friends later on, and then I was just like, oh, I think they dated.
Yeah.
And then I went down a little rabbit hole, and I was like, oh, they were engaged, and they were dating on this, but were broken up by the time he was on Friends.
Yeah.
Or actually, we're right in the middle of breaking up while they were on Friends.
Mm-hmm.
So
I also
it was
read
interesting.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious because they do have very good chemistry.
Yeah.
On Friends.
Yeah.
And it was funny because here they don't really interact. And I think it was because they were like, well, we don't want to distract because they were a very high profile relationship at that point. He had just come off of dating Sandra
Bullock. Yeah.
And it's all so interesting.
So many of America's sweethearts. He's
And Tate Donovan, so at least in the pilot, Tate Donovan barges into the scene. He looks like he's cosplaying, John Travolta's Michael. He's got this long flowing hair and a trench coat, and I was hooked right from go. So I'll just this is a chaotic episode, guys. I assume we're about 13 minutes in, and if y'all still listening, chaos.
You want to describe the plot?
No.
Okay.
In it. So. No, I just want to keep going. I just want to keep going.
Okay.
On
let's
vibes.
just let it. He's on a flow.
Okay.
Let's go.
If we're just gonna keep going,
I was kidding. I have a whole thing.
You do?
I got a notebook here.
Honestly, the plot of this episode is so
Not much happens.
so thin,
so
thin that if you said it's not worth it, I would be okay with that.
It is very thin.
But if you've prepared a statement, let's hear it.
And I'll probably start riffing. In the middle of doing it, as is my want. So episode 1 is obviously the first one we watched, because this week we could actually find the first episode.
Yeah.
And so we're introduced to the life of our partners, both Owen and Alicia, who are the partners in life, but also Bob and Owen, who are partners in business. So it's a little bit of a little double entendre there, but not in a sexy way. Yeah. And those two are both big shot architects, so they're partners together. But let's get serious. They're also best friends, and they're also kind of partners in life. This is they have
no boundaries with each other.
There's no boundaries. Jon Cryer is the real what we call in the business. He's the real Barry in a relationship. He's privy to the entire relationship, both sides of it. They both like him. He's on one side, but not really. He's on both sides. They like him. So in the first episode, we're basically introduced to all these people. But Owen is very nervous, and this is apparently out of character, even though he kind of seems like a pretty nervous guy in general.
He does come across as a bit neurotic. So
yeah, which is an interesting. It's weird to see Tate Donovan play somebody not super cool and collected on the outside.
Yeah.
Because this guy is kind of like a neurotic mess.
Yeah.
So he's all nervous, and Owen and Alicia Bob and Alicia are trying to figure it out. And really what it's come down to is he's going to propose to Alicia. So we're going to get into some long form storytelling on the show right off the bat. We got a wedding in the first season, which is the whole overarching plot of it. But first he can't do it. He can't do it. And the reason why is because Bob is the one who makes all the moves and does all the talking in his life. So he needs Bob's help to propose to his girlfriend, who's crazy about him, which, I don't know if I would go to Bob with this. But then again, people go to me with things that I get confused as to why they could possibly think my advice would count. And that's kind of Bob here. Bob is just sort of helps him. He's like, I don't know, just don't worry about talking. Just put the ring in a glass of champagne or oysters. And of course,
terrible idea.
Can we talk about
this? Of course,
this?
you're like, champagne is a great idea. But Owen was only half listening, and he's like, yes, oysters. That's a regular thing that happens. Is that a regular thing that happens? Do people put rings?
No, I don't. Okay, but I feel like it was a 90s trope, though, to put an engagement ring in food or in a beverage.
Yeah, hiding an engagement ring in a
gross.
thing.
I don't understand. I'm like, I don't want my champagne ruined by I just don't want, or my beautiful new engagement ring being in food or my beverage.
I feel like just having it in just dipped into a mollusk is not really
it's weird, but what I will say is it was almost worth it for the fact that it led to one of the only moments I kind of liked in the episode, which was
I thought the gag played off really nicely.
Yeah, the idea that the character would do that is stupid, but the gag that results is actually quite clever.
So he gets the ring put in the oysters, and cuts to them at dinner, and he's trying to get her to have that last oyster because she's full. Forgetting the fact that you don't have oysters at the end of a meal.
You have it at the beginning.
You have them at the beginning,
and they're not filling.
and they're not filling. But maybe she doesn't like oysters. I don't know. Anyways, she has the last oyster, and I think everybody in the audience, when she doesn't find a ring, everybody's like, "Oh, she swallowed the ring.
Yeah, she must have swallowed it."
And he's like, "Where is it? This is ridiculous." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And then across the restaurant, somebody else who ordered oysters has a ring in their oyster and thinks that they're proposing. And it all plays out like the timing of it really manages to sell the gag.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like he's so neurotic that he's like, oh shit, I gotta go get that ring. And he's just like, I'll be right back. Will you marry me? I'll be right back. And like it's pretty amusing.
That was pretty funny.
I thought it was cute. I thought it was cute.
The way he doesn't know what to do, so he's sort of stuck and he realizes like, okay, will you marry me? I'll be right back. Like the way that he that was actually
I feel like I would have planned it. Like I think I might have leaned into the sweetness of the moment where he's like, will you marry me? And she's like, yes. He goes, great, I'll be right back. And then that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty good execution of that gag.
It was fun. It was fun.
It was
and then
fun.
So the rest of the episode is essentially, we see that Bob helps Owen with some of his issues, but also Bob hinders as well. So, the rest of the episode is basically them fighting over when the wedding is going to be, which again, and I noticed this several times over the course of the show, this show having the two lead writers just be two dudes really seem to be coming at this from a very, very male oriented, we don't understand women at all place. And you're just like, the next day they're like, oh, we've got the date. And you're like, nobody's got the fucking date the day after the engagement.
No. It's not even determined by what date. It's always determined by your venue, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But these guys are like, that's how weddings work, right?
Yeah.
And then there's where they're trying to figure out, and this kind of cements itself where they're going through like all these dates of when they are. And then they say March 16th. And she's like, I can't do it. It's a bad time. And they're like, why? It's bad feminine time because her period falls on the exact same day of the month every single month. Like, and it's just like one of those things where you're like, I don't know, guys.
Well,
I don't know if I want that joke.
A period is a week long, and so it's not that it falls in the same week. It's just during the week of her period.
Yes, it just seems.
So
but
I actually liked that joke. I feel like there are not enough period jokes.
Barry, you just proved your previous point of why it needed a female writer.
I actually liked the period joke. I thought it was good.
I like the concept of it.
It's like a nightmare to like have your wedding during that time.
Yeah,
because you're wearing a goddamn white dress.
I think highlighting the week would have made it better.
Yeah. Well, she said time. She said time.
But let's put it this way.
It's a bad feminine time.
The whole scene was pretty weak for me.
Yeah, it was all pretty weak.
That was like the lowest point of the episode in general because because they wouldn't be just in a vacuum picking a day immediately. Yeah. The idea that this friend, like it's just laying it on so thick the way that this friend Bob is interjecting himself into the situation.
It's like you all out in the audience know who Jon Cryer is. It's a very Jon Cryer specific like concern because you're like, if you have Jon Cryer in your life, this is what he's doing to you. Sorry, a Jon Cryer character. I don't know anything about Jon Cryer.
We don't know him personally.
He's a famous actor who's got lots going on for him. But the characters that he plays are often these characters.
Yeah.
Right. This is the type. I actually, so it's a while since we've done a show that tackles the sort of age and themes and style of this one. And
I'll take your word for it. I don't even remember what our last episode was.
I don't either. But I do.
It was Flying Blind, wasn't it?
Right.
What in the hell is Flying Blind?
I barely know.
I like a mid-90s Gen X angsty hangout show.
Like
I like that type of show in theory. I don't think I've seen one set in San Francisco before. I
got briefly excited because I thought it was the Ambassador Bridge at the beginning. Then I was like, oh, it's the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah.
I kind of like the overall premise of, a character who has a partner, like a life partner, and a sort of business or work friendship partner who's that third wheel. Like all of that made sense to me. My biggest problem with this was the specific choice of plots and storylines that they covered. Less so, like more so than the execution was just like, I thought it was like a fine concept, a fine execution, but the writing in between the concept and the execution of actually choosing those plot lines, choosing those storylines was my least favorite part of it, save for maybe the clothing and facial hair, which is insufferable. Jon Cryer's goatee made me physically ill.
Yeah, I hated it. And I love that, we'll get into it, but in the second episode we watched, a major plot line was him shaving it. And that really made me happy because that was a gross goatee. That was like a really...
It makes things a lot better once that thing comes off.
Yeah.
It makes it...
I happen to click into a future episode and it stays off. So.
Nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe they got a lot of feedback from audience testing where they're like, I just can't look at this.
Yeah, it's not good.
They got the back 9 order on the season, and they're like, but that Van Dyke has got to go.
Gotta go. Yeah. It's gotta go.
The women were actually styled nicely.
The women were fine.
I felt.
The men were styled terribly.
I liked some good curly hair representation. With
Pitillo.
she was so cute, and she just had they had really good 90s outfits on her. It was
the women were fine. They looked good.
Yeah,
I liked her a lot in general.
Yeah.
Actually.
What's his name?
A delight.
The other guy, not Jon Cryer. Tate Donovan.
Tate Donovan.
Even him.
He's a very handsome man.
He's a handsome man, and they're putting him in these shirts that are 2 sizes too big, in these awkward suspenders. His waist.
Michael. Look up John Travolta's Michael.
Yeah.
And you will see exactly his outfit.
The waist is up at his stomach. And I'm just like, by 1995, you could have done better. This was not, it was hard.
I've never seen somebody squander Tate Donovan so hard.
Exactly. It's like that outfit. It's not that the outfit's a problem. It's the pairing of that outfit with him. And you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It's all a lot.
Because again, these are not characters that are, one-offs that are popping in for an episode. This is your core cast. This is a hangout show.
Decisions were made.
I need to want to look at these people week in and week out, and they were hard to look at. These guys with
Pitillo's
those choices.
Alicia, as Brynn points out, is dressed very well and great. Yeah, she
looks great.
I especially liked her cute little outfit it was just the simple jeans, white t-shirt, and the little vest. I was like, that is a good 90s look. She looks very put together.
I loved the vests.
Yeah, she looks so cute.
There was another thing I really appreciated. And this was weird, but the episode caps with the 2 of them in their bedroom continuing a fight that they've been having the whole episode.
Yeah.
This is the smallest thing ever, but you never see it because sound stages, they're in socks.
Yeah.
They're not in shoes.
Yeah.
Because you watch any episode of Friends, they're sitting on their bed, they're wearing shoes.
For no reason.
It drives me insane.
Yeah.
Very good point. Very good point.
I noticed the socks too.
That said, one more complaint about production design is I felt that the home, I guess it's Tate Donovan's character's home.
It is, yes.
That the other 2 are always at, because I guess...
it's a big set.
Yeah. Anyway, it did not feel like it suited him or her or them in general. It looked like a home set from a stock mid-90s family sitcom where older adults who have kids are living in the suburbs, whereas these are architects. So I kind of care what his home looks like.
It's funny you should mention that because it's a worse dressed version of Ted Mosby's apartment from How I Met Your Mother, who is also an architect, complete with the placement of a drafting desk and but just it didn't really work. I mean, this It was not a good set. I happened to see what Bob's apartment looks like in another episode.
Okay.
And like, it's a lot more modest and like down to earth. And I feel like maybe because they don't show it till later, maybe they were like, all right, we kind of fucked up with our main character.
I guess I feel like, maybe a small piece of advice for any writers who are planning a show where the protagonist is an architect. Look at what an architect's home is like. Whether it's a small, modest, one-bedroom condo or a large, spacious mansion, it's not really about how big it is or how expensive it is. It's more just like a successful architect would have like more purposeful, interesting interior choices.
I'm gonna put another suggestion out there. If you're writing your pilot right now, we don't need any more shows about fucking architects.
I know. It's
We're
not
done.
relatable to anyone. It's
We
you
get
know.
it. You're gonna write a monologue
Yeah.
about the how building a fucking skyscraper somehow relates to love or something.
Yeah.
Right. And
we get it.
True. And furthermore to the laziness of it, in the first episode, there are a couple of scenes where the two guys have dialogue about some sort of work-related project where they're trying to save
they were in marketing.
Some sort of pitch. Yeah, and the problem is that it's a lot of mumbo-jumbo that goes by really fast, but it's neither interesting nor does it feel specific enough to architecture. Like it just
mumbo-jumbo.
It was basically just filler. Like these two guys work together, they're dealing with some guy on the phone, and it's just a lot of fast-talking scene filler. But it clearly that just had to be gotten out of the way so they could get back to the main plot. But it was like, I don't know. Again, it's like, it's a very big choice to say this show has two guys who both run like an architecture firm. Okay, now that you've committed to that, get some authenticity in there.
So we assume they run this firm because the show is called Partners. And all this, but then they're constantly referring to their bosses and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't even know if these guys are partners in the firm or if it's just called that.
I don't think the showrunners knew.
No. I will say this though. So some of when they started going down the let's argue about the wedding date things.
Yeah.
At first, and the show doesn't realize it, I'm like, okay, some of his points are fine because they do have work commitments. So you can't book it on certain days based on that. And but I don't think the show realizes that those were okay things for him to say.
Right.
Yeah.
The show thinks it's already ridiculous. And you're like, no, if you did have that project due that week and it's a big client, yeah, you're probably not going to schedule your wedding for that day. And it is helpful that your work partner tells you that. But
it's also the whole argument is that it's going to disrupt the work project. But it's also like you don't want an important life event at the same time as a stressful thing.
Yeah.
Like you want to be able to focus on the important life event and not think about work bullshit.
Let's get serious. I mean, Owen's noping out of that entire wedding planning. It's all going to be Alicia and Bob.
Right.
And Bob. There's going to be many episodes of Bob doing wedding planning.
Yeah. I will give a positive shout out to, I quite enjoyed the assistant character.
Yeah, she was funny.
In The Office.
Yeah, Heather.
Real Janine Melnack type.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole thing with her is that she's like very unlucky. She keeps getting into like little accidents and getting sick and all sorts of so every time
there's always a crisis,
always
basically.
something. Whenever she's on screen, she's complaining about oh, the doctor prescribed the wrong thing and blah 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 or whatever it is. And so she's like this sort of schlemiel archetype, but it's a very but what's interesting about it is it's not like the typical on the nose casting for the kinds of things that she's complaining about. And nor does it feel like she's clumsy or that she's a bad assistant or anything like that. She seems like a perfectly smart, effective person who, just well-dressed, everything, who just these things keep happening to her.
Just rotten luck.
Just rotten luck.
I like when like Bob is like saying like, oh, don't you ever just kind of like want to like wrap your arms around her and tell her it's gonna be okay or something like that. And then Owen's like, I would, but I'm afraid of whatever was about to hit her is gonna hit me.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was a pretty funny line.
That was pretty funny.
So yeah, they did a very efficient job of setting up. Now, like how much legs you can get out of such a specific characterization, I don't know.
Yeah.
Presumably they'd have to add a third dimension to her at some point.
I think she's not even in that many episodes. She's like half the episodes, maybe.
Yeah, she made the regular cast.
Yeah.
Though. She's the 4th cast member in the credits.
That's true.
There's another, thorough through where like they're arguing about like on Cryer's 30th birthday, which made me go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, they're supposed to be so young,
and I'm so much older than these sitcom starter characters now that it just like really upsets me.
Yeah, it's upset. It is,
but
very
they're gonna
upsetting.
go skydiving on his 30th birthday with which no, not that character. None of those characters are doing it. But it did lead to a very sweet, and it was so she forbids Owen from going skydiving. And it becomes a thing like, you can't do that. Skydiving, for those of you who don't know, was very big in the 90s.
It was like everybody, and bungee jumping.
Uncle Jesse missed his wedding because of skydiving. Like it was
every sitcom did. They had a plot line about skydiving or bungee jumping.
Fuck.
You're right. That is a weird trope.
But because I'm sad and single, I actually had the thought that comes out in the episode later on, which is Bob is talking to Owen where like, Alicia is stormed out and she's like, wow, I can't believe, she won't let you go skydiving. And he's like, I know. And then Bob's like, I've never had anybody like care enough about me to want to stop me from jumping out of a plane. And I was like, I had that exact moment earlier in the episode where I was like, man, it must be nice to have somebody not. I was like, I could go skydiving any day and no one would stop me. And then
I'd be nervous.
And then it came out in the episode. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I am.
That was actually kind of a sweet turn.
I was like, oh, Cryer is the Barry of this.
And I liked that bedroom scene with the socks and the way they resolved that in general. The only thing I thought was a little weird was that potted plant gag.
Yeah, I didn't understand what was going on there. Yeah.
So he goes into the room. She's behind this potted plant and she's throwing bits of it out. And I think
she was trying to prune it or something.
Yeah, her face was stuck in the plant so that you couldn't see her face. And she's like pulling leaves out and talking to him through the plant.
Maybe you're right. But if that were the case, Brynn, I feel like they set dressed the wrong plant.
Yeah,
because it was not a plant that required pruning.
No, it was a very strange choice.
It was very
like,
odd.
They were like banana leaves. Like, it was plastic for one.
Yeah.
Very strange. Like they wanted to give her some sort of business so that it wasn't just two people looking at each other talking, but like she was kind of, I get the idea of her kind of hiding in the corner, avoiding this conversation or like not, or being annoyed by the tone that he brought into the conversation. So I understood the desire to give her character some sort of business, but that specific choice, wow.
I still stand by. I don't think these two guys, I don't think Jeff and Jeff were big on writing, big on writing up their female characters, which is a perfect segue into episode 17.
Yeah, let's get into it.
In which let's just with the little Friends there, the one where Friends happens. No, that's not what. The one where Jennifer Aniston stops by. So playing off of their high profile romance at the time, as well as Aniston's huge,
breakout
star.
Success,
this is early 96. This is real, Friends is huge, right? Which is, again, why I assumed this was NBC, because this would be a natural bit of synergy to bring, to have Jennifer Aniston boost up your show in a way that I feel like this wouldn't happen today, because I can't imagine lending one of your big stars to prop up another network's project. Right?
I would thought that too, unless for some reason there was a quid pro quo.
Maybe.
Unless there was some sort of trade where NBC let Fox borrow her for a 1-episode cameo. In exchange, they got to borrow some Fox star for an episode.
I'm sure it was, or maybe it allowed Aniston to work on a project that required anything. Anyway, Aniston's there. Another thin plot episode. I would go with even
thinner.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just this show. And honestly, I appreciate a show that is more just about let's bounce these characters off each other. I like that. When our sitcoms get too plot heavy, especially the bad ones, that's when you lose me a little. Not everybody's Seinfeld. Not everybody can pull off intricate plotting.
Yeah,
right?
And don't try unless you're willing to go the distance on that. Better off keeping it simple.
A lot of these shows would have been a lot better to just bounce their characters off each other.
Yeah.
So in this one, we're getting a visit from CPA Suzanne, who is their accountant, who does the boys' taxes. And we know that, just from them talking about her, she's pretty hot. And Tate Donovan is like, I think she's got a really big crush on me. And he keeps saying it with this winking eye. And we're like, I guess, bud, what's going on? And then it's Jennifer Aniston. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So you think that the episode is going to be her throwing herself at Tate Donovan the whole time.
Yeah.
But as soon as she's with the two boys, she asks Tate Donovan to go get her some water. And she's all over Jon Cryer in the least convincing makeouts I've ever seen from two. I have never seen
their sucking face.
They're instantly sucking face, but also
dispassionately
don't want to be the actors don't want to be touching each other. So
yeah,
so
which also, I mean, this obviously goes directly into the plot, but when I saw that, I was with that goatee, I was like, oh, poor Jennifer.
Well, I wrote down she has to make out with that goatee. I can't.
Well, she's also right off the bat, she's they're talking about how hot they think each other is, and one of them is 1996 Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah.
So you get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But then there's Jon Cryer sitting in there with with a Dante Hicks Van Dyke and a giant sweater vest. And you're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, it's you realize that her hotness doesn't rub off on other people just because they're within a certain 3 feet of proximity or something.
And it's this
know
is
that,
not
right?
I'm not casting, I'm not in any way slandering Jon Cryer's looks. I'm talking about the way this character presents himself.
Yeah. The way this character is styled and presents himself to people
it's not good.
Mess.
A mess.
He is a hot mess.
Yeah.
So essentially the whole episode
and she looked good. She looked just as well styled as on Friends.
She looked like she walked right off of Friends.
Yeah, one soundstage to the other.
Her normal smoke show self,
Great hair, great everything. Just
yeah. We're in good Rachel Green hair territory.
Yeah.
We're not in shady one. So and also her being a really successful accountant, I feel like her outfit choices make sense a lot more here than being a shitty waitress in New York. So good use of Aniston.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. There's a lot of Aniston in this, but I don't think that she gets to be very funny in it. There's not a lot to her character except for hot, cold, throwing herself at Jon Cryer. And then, they break up by the end of the episode because of course they do. They have to. She's Jennifer Aniston. She has to go back to Central Perk. And, there's a whole plot about how she gets him to shave his goatee. Thank God. And then she's like, I had these problems with you. And I thought that I could, fix them gradually and I would be into you, but it's not working for me. And you're like, I don't know, you were throwing yourself at him
that's
real
exactly
hard.
what we thought. We were like, wait, so she's not attracted to him? If she's not attracted to him, why was she like shoving her tongue down his throat immediately?
She was all over him with the goatee.
Yeah.
So when she got him to shave it, I was like, okay, well, she clearly is really into this guy. And now that she feels comfortable enough with him that she can bring up this one nitpicky thing that she, finds him super hot in spite of the hideous goatee, she finally feels, secure enough in knowing him for a little bit of time to be like, by the way, I'd love it if you shaved this off. And I shouted, yes.
We were both like, please just shave it,
But it doesn't make any sense.
There's a lot of interesting. Okay, so hear me out on a weird little there's some interesting dramatic ideas in this episode that are all very poorly executed.
Okay.
I like the idea of this character not being sure about him and trying to figure out what it is that isn't working for her. But it's not played that way.
Yeah.
We don't get to see that because we don't really spend any time with her. All we see is her being so crazy for him. It would have been nice if we had seen a little bit of something's not working for her, right? But that's not how the goatee thing comes up. The goatee thing comes up almost in a weird, I can't, it feels like she's going to ask him to do something sexually. And that's going to be where this episode is going.
Some sort of kinky
she's
sexual
I've
thing.
never asked a guy to do this before. And
I thought she was going to ask him to pee on her or something.
She's like, I don't know. Oh, it's very intimate. I don't know if I even feel comfortable asking.
Yeah. And but I like the elements
I was oh, this is the fox coming out.
Yeah.
Is this going to be butt stuff?
Yeah. I like the elements of somebody liking somebody, but maybe not being fully attracted to them and trying to figure out a way to, and then realizing, I'm sorry, I'm trying to change you. There's interesting elements.
Yes.
There. This also leads me to the last act of the episode, which I don't know what the fuck was going on in. And I think a lot of it comes off to, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going to apologize to longtime friend and listener of the show, Jon Cryer. I don't understand a single acting choice you made in the last act of this episode, because he goes on a long, she dumps him on Valentine's Day. Whatever. That's the whole plot of the episode. Sorry, I didn't bring it up earlier, guys. It's Valentine's Day. They go on a double date on Valentine's Day because it's a sitcom. Whatever. So she dumps him, and then through weird plotting, Owen's out of the picture, getting sick somewhere, and we're left with just Alicia and Bob at the table. And this should be a kind of sweet scene, where she's sort of telling him, kind of propping him up a bit. But what we really, what we get is he tells this kind of cute story about how I really just want to find somebody to go dig clams with me, in the future. And it's awkwardly written, but then he's like, come on, let's go dig clams together. And you're like, okay, this is funny, he's like, but he's sort of playing it like he's kind of coming on to her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird.
Like he seriously is.
And she's playing it like, I'm a little weirded out here, bud. Let's take it down a notch. And then the episode ends with us still thinking this is sweet because they go dance together. And they're playing all the right notes of this is a sweet moment for them as friends. But I couldn't help but be creeped out by the previous scene. And I was like, I would have liked a scene there where, she helps him kind of get through some self-esteem issues, by being like, you're a really nice guy, and we're such, you're a great friend. I don't know why it's creepy. I don't get why that scene exists.
Yeah.
In the creepy way that
it's very weird the way that he kind of gets dumped on Valentine's Day. She happens to be there. So it could have been a sweet scene.
Yeah.
But
because I think the two of them play off very well together. And I like them having a friendship.
Yes. But it immediately pivots. He immediately pivots from getting dumped by the woman he was dating to, yes, like you said, not really comedically or sarcastically, but a way that seems quite earnest and sincere.
Yeah, and he's slamming scotch.
Yeah, he's basically getting hammered and then just starts hitting on his best friend's fiance, basically.
Yeah.
And he's just like, this just got very awkward and uncomfortable.
And I didn't understand a lick of it.
No.
I wasn't sure how I'm supposed to feel.
No. The other thing I didn't understand is how I guess you'd call it the B story of the other character getting sick felt like the laziest writing I've seen in a long time. And that weird herbal medicine thing was like, I don't know if it's offensive or not. It might be. No. But it was definitely lazy. It was definitely like, we need something for him. Yeah. Something for his character.
Thank you for reminding me, because that's the joke I wanted to bring back. So I keep wanting to call him Jimmy Cooper, but Owen is sick because the plot needs him to be. Yeah. So he goes into the office. He's talking to their assistant, and she gives him some, let's just call it a naturopathic remedy.
Because she's always sick, so she has things handy. Yeah.
And I think it's called something really generic, like curing oil. And so he does the eyedropper on his tongue.
Right.
And he's like, what's in this? And she's like, ginseng, herbs, blah, blah, blah. Anaconda semen. Yeah. Which, okay, let's get serious. Snakes don't have semen, everybody. Yeah. Or do they? Hit me up. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's got it in his mouth. And to get past censors, he says, you mean they're calling this?
I didn't hear that. I didn't catch that.
And I was just like, bravo. Thank you, network. Because I'm sure they could, if the censors brought that up, I'm sure they could be like, you heard him say what?
Yeah, because I missed it. I missed what he mumbled.
That's 100% what he said. Yeah. And it got a very big laugh out of me, mostly because I wasn't expecting to hear that in this relatively innocent show. Yeah. And that's,
Well, they made an erect nipple joke in the first one, which I thought was a little edgy.
That's true.
Well, that would have been funnier if because Cryer feels his chest and he's like, is one of your nipples really erect? And that's because the ring's in there, which would make sense if the ring was out in his pocket. But he has it in a full he's not gonna container.
He's not going to have it like loose in there.
Yeah.
And it's funny though, because clearly in between script to filming, somebody was like, nobody's carrying around a ring just loose in their pocket. That's really stupid. And they were like, well, I already wrote the line, so do whatever you want. I don't even care.
You're right. There was, yet another case of the wardrobe and set design being in conflict with the characters.
Yeah, they're just at war with each other. Because, not only that, but, it's a big box, and it wasn't in his pocket.
Yeah.
And then, it wasn't in the scene. He didn't have, his chest wasn't bulging out.
Yeah. And another thing, in episode 17, when Jon Cryer's character has apparently shaved the facial hair, the first scene where that goes down, he's got his face covered in a towel. So you can't see his face, and she comes in, and to show her, to reveal that he's shaved it, she sticks her head under the towel. So they're hiding it from the audience and they're both under this towel. And so my first thought was, okay, so they didn't actually want to shave the actor and we're never going to get to see it. And somehow it's going to jump ahead 2 weeks and he's grown it back or something. There's going to be some bullshit where they wrote around Jon Cryer having to shave. But then the next scene, he has shaved and he walks in and the audience applauds as they should because it was
as they should.
But then I thought
because it's dead.
Yeah. But then I thought, well, if you did shave it, what was the point of the towel gag? What were you hiding? That was so weird.
I think I know, and I don't think it was a gag. I mistakenly, and this was on a very low budget feature, but it basically threw my whole schedule off. I have a main character with a beard in half of a movie, and Shorn the latter half of the movie, completely clean faced.
Mhm.
I had to redo the whole schedule around what scenes could be shot when because of that. Now adding in, we only have Jennifer Aniston for two days.
I see where you're
between
going with
things.
this.
I think it was an easy, we can shoot this scene anytime. That's what I think. I think it was for scheduling purposes. Then they could do the pickups whenever
You're probably
Mhm.
right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. More sense than running away to be clam diggers,
Oh God.
which was so random and specific. And the only other note I had is just that in general, the opening titles and music for this show could not be more like
Mid-90s.
mid-90s Gen X show. Like when
They feel very weirdly ABC.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
It could not be more perfect
It
archetypal.
reminds me a bit of Townies, like that opening.
Yeah.
Remember Townies?
Yeah. I
How
miss Townies.
long ago was that? We've
was a
done
long time
so many
ago.
episodes.
Townies was episode 4. 3.
Wow.
3 or
Yeah.
4. One of the first.
You're right.
It was
Yeah.
4. It was
4.
4.
It was 4.
Yeah.
Mind you, I don't remember what Flying Blind was, and I refuse to think harder to remember it. And we only recorded that 2 weeks ago.
I also-
Townies, I remember everything.
Yeah, I also can't remember anything about Flying Blind.
We wiped it from our memories.
Oh well.
I don't think we liked it, right? We didn't like it.
Clearly not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brynn, how would you like to connect in in what is presumably a very obvious fashion this show that wishes it was a West Coast Friends with friends?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so obviously we have the two main obvious ones in that Jennifer Aniston guest starred on this show, as well as Tate Donovan having a recurring role in Friends. So there's 2 1-degree connections right off the bat, but there's
the other one.
There's several other 1-degree connections as well. Like there's Corinne Boror, who played a character who we didn't meet in either episode. She plays, I guess, Alicia's friend Lolly, so she's guest stars on Friends. Maria Pitillo also guest starred on Friends.
Yep.
Jeff Greenstein and Jeff Strauss were also writers. The 2 Jeffs were also writers and producers of Friends. And Paul Lazarus, Ellen Gittleson, and James Burrows all directed both shows.
Yep. I saw Burrows. Burrows is
he's like the most prolific.
Yeah. So this is a real. These cast and crews were just all over each other's business.
Yeah. It's like, a Gen X hangout show. We gotta just have all the same people coming in and out.
Right. So even though it wasn't NBC, it was still kind of a lot of cross-pollinating.
So that's like 6 1-degree connections, and there's obviously other there's other connections. We didn't even talk about the fact that apparently this was like had a crossover with Ned and Stacey.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it had a crossover. I didn't research it. I was hoping you would research it, Barry. Maybe we'll revisit this at some point. But there's like a crossover with Ned and Stacey, allegedly.
Vibes are off.
So then there would have been, more connections, which we've already talked about in the last episode, and then the one like others previous where Thomas Hayden Church was in the mix, because there were I think 3 or 4 degree connections to Friends through that. So there's a lot of connections.
Cryer.
Yeah.
I bet,
So I looked at Cryer and there wasn't anything obvious, actually, surprisingly. But there was
all right.
There's got to be a 2 or 3 degree connection. I just didn't. I was like, I'm just gonna scoop up all the 1-degree connections. I can
do Cryer in 2.
Okay, go for it, Barry. Take my job.
Jon Cryer to Charlie Sheen in 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen was on Friends.
Right. I guess he was, wasn't he? Wow.
He was.
There were a lot of famous people that went on Friends.
Big show. Big show. Really, really big.
Yeah, there's probably even more. There's probably way more.
This is our second Cryer. What do you guys feel? How'd you guys feel about Cryer in this in general?
I mean, he's, he does what he does. Like, he's good. I mean, I still I enjoyed him on the Teddy Z. That might have, of the 12 shows we've watched with him in it, he was like the best on that one because he played that youthful kind of innocence really well. He was fine on this. He was, it was just that goatee was really hard to get over. Like, it was really hard to deal with.
It was.
But yeah, he was fine. He did his thing. I definitely liked this character better than his character on 2.5 Men, the bit of that I've seen.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I kept expecting this character to be sleazier.
Yeah.
And he's mostly not.
Yeah, he's not really sleazy at all.
A little tonal. There's some weird lines.
Yeah.
It was the 90s.
If I had to vote for my preferred Jon Cryer show that we've reviewed, it would have to be Teddy Z.
Yeah.
Also, just like Teddy Z thematically delves into a lot of territory that like metatextually talks about things that we talk about on this podcast anyway.
Yeah, that was a fun show to talk about.
I.e. making a TV show. So
yeah.
I don't remember what I felt about Teddy Z when we reviewed it, but I do know that if asked to name a list of shows that we've watched that I liked, it would have been on the list. Yeah. And I occasionally am like, oh, do you ever like any of the shows? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. And Teddy Z usually comes out.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, spin-off?
Yeah, I mean...
Did this ruin anybody?
No, I don't think it did. I think everyone was okay after. I mean, obviously, Tate Donovan and Jon Cryer both went on to have long careers. So I'll just talk some highlights about Tate Donovan. So, fun fact, he was like the voice of Hercules in the Disney movie and all the animated series spin-offs. So he was basically like that voice of Hercules.
Did you know that? Because I just found that out today, too.
No, I didn't know that until I did this research. I was like, whoa, that's so funny. It's such a random... Wild. And he, like, did the voice for every single iteration of that. Like, he did, like, all, like, the animated series, all those, like, junkies straight to VHS.
Huh.
Like, sequels or whatever. So, that's kind of interesting. And, of course, he had his recurring role in Friends. That was really memorable, even though it actually wasn't even that many episodes. It was only about like 6 episodes.
Can I tell you something? I forget what that role was.
So he played Joshua, the guy that Rachel worked with, that she had a crush on.
Oh, right.
And basically, there's like a whole misunderstanding because Rachel ends up creeping him out because she comes on too strong, or at least she comes off as she's coming on too strong. It's a whole thing. But they had this like on and off again kind of thing together where they were like coworkers and friends and liked each other and then didn't like each other. So yeah, so there was like that whole thing. He also had a few episodes of Ally McBeal, so a couple of those like big shows at the time. And we know him best, I think, as Jimmy Cooper on the OC, the very kind of dreamy but a bit troubled dad of Marissa Cooper. So, it's I always wanted to...
No, it's no wonder she ended up how she ended.
I know, exactly. Exactly. Like, they were both troubled. They were both cut from the same cloth. He also co-starred in a few other series, including Damages, Hostages, Deception, 24, Live Another Day, which is, I guess, a spinoff of 24, but it's 24 Live Another Day. Like a mini series or something.
I don't know why I've seen every episode of 24 that's ever existed. 24 Live Another Day was they tried to bring it back.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 years after it ended. So it's literally just another season of 24.
Yeah. So he's also been in a few movies as well, including Rocket Man, which I really loved, the Elton John biopic. He was in the Aretha Franklin biopic, Respect, and most recently he was on The Holdovers, which is one of my top Oscar picks. Yeah, and then so of course we have Jon Cryer. So following this show, he appeared in tons of things. He popped up here and there in a lot of different series. He also co-starred in a short-lived sitcom called The Trouble with Normal, and guest starred on like I said, a lot of other shows that were popular at the time. He's best known for his role as Alan Parker on 2.5 Men. That was like the longest running thing that he's been involved in. Other roles include recent roles include Ryan Hansen Solves Crimes on Television, where he plays himself, which is kind of funny. And then he played Lex Luthor on the Supergirl series. So yeah,
got facial hair again on that. It's terrible.
Oh boy. So he's not really been hard up for work. He's been pretty consistent. Maria Pitillo, she appeared in a lot of TV shows and films since her time on Partners. One of her longest roles was a co-starring role in Providence, which is a show I always forget that existed.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And then Catherine Lloyd Burns, who played the assistant character Heather. So she's appeared in a couple of Twas shows. So The Single Guy and Ned and Stacy, which I found kind of funny. She had a recurring role in Late Line, and Malcolm in the Middle, and most recently was in Search Party. Yeah, and then Corinne Bohrer, who I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's Bohrer. It's like Bohrer. Sorry to you if you're listening, Corinne, but you're probably not. She appeared in a variety of popular shows, including Party of Five, Will and Grace. She had recurring roles in Rude Awakening, Veronica Mars, Murder in the First, and then most recently was in Criminal Minds and Grey's Anatomy. So yeah, I mean, everybody was fine. And there's like a ton of guest stars on this show that, we've seen in lots of stuff. So yeah, it didn't really hurt. I don't think it hurt anyone's career. It was just sort of like this kind of forgettable little blip. Like, and you wouldn't watch this and think, oh, it's like a bad showcase of any of those cast members. Like, it was quite serviceable and quite good, like in terms of
how I would describe it.
Yeah, like
serviceable.
Yeah, it's like you're not gonna watch that and be like, oh, that kid's never gonna work again. Like,
right? Yeah.
You're just gonna see that and be like, oh yeah, they know how to deliver a line.
I think it's an example of just like all the parts are there. They're not working together. So, something about them,
they're a little wonky. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some factory errors.
The Jeffs kept working, I'm sure,
Yeah.
I really enjoy, apparently their production company is just called Jeff and Jeff. So yeah.
Funny.
You know what I remember Maria Pitillo from?
Where?
I spent the whole episode half paying attention, trying to remember where I knew her from. She was the lead in the 1998 Godzilla with Matthew Broderick.
Was she? I didn't see that.
Her
in
against
her
Matthew Broderick and versus Godzilla, and they won.
Huh.
Well, I didn't note that. It didn't jump out at me.
Terrible.
So I'm
it's
sorry,
terrible.
Maria Pitillo, but
Oh, I would imagine that if somebody doesn't bring up Godzilla to Maria Pitillo, she's having an okay day.
Yeah.
I think we should give Mr. Producer a call because, I don't know, I want to know what he thinks of this show.
Hey kid, what's the slice?
Oh, just the usual. Actually, we were talking a bit about the Oscars earlier in our episode here, so you must have done some award shows in your day.
Oh, tons. Actually, I was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award back in, must have been 98. I guess they counted me out a bit too early. Here I am 26 years later going, well, maybe not strong, but going.
Was this like an Emmy or?
No, it was a Canadian Screen Award. Those were the Geminis back then. Oh, I remember the table they had me at. It was a great spread. The foods and the peoples. It was me, Matt Bopp, of course. You had Enrico Colantoni, Ananas from Tele Francais, and Jason Priestley.
Nice. Well,
Anana.
Oh, wow, you met Anana?
Unfortunately, yes. I met him on several occasions. Let me tell you, that was one prima donna. Guy does one guest spot on Melrose Place, and suddenly Mr. Je suis an Anana was all about, Je suis, give me another Quaalude. And I mean, this is a guy working for TVO. He's working for scale. How was he even affording it? Guy fell in with a bad crowd, I guess, with those Melrose kids. Where was I?
I genuinely have no idea. The award show?
Right. A lovely show. Afterwards, there was a wonderful dinner, some dancing, music by the incomparable Hill Herbert and his Jingletown Jimmies. But after that, oh boy, that was a night. The table we decided to hit the town after. Well, I mean, not Colantoni or Priestley. Those guys wanted nothing to do with that. But, a couple of drinks in, it leads to Ananas saying, we got to hit up Polkaroo's house because, he's got the good stuff, right? And I tell him, hey, man, there's no way you could drive, not just because he's wasted, but also, he's a foot and a half tall talking pineapple. There's no way he can even reach the pedals logistically. So cooler heads prevail. We're out in a cab in Scarborough just trying to find some half-remembered house. And, me and Bop, no matter how much we're arguing with him, we're trying to say, Polkaroo, he's just a guy in a suit, multiple guys over the years. Which guy does he even mean? But, you can't argue with this guy. That little guy gets something in his prickly little brain and he's on a mission. Can't stop him. But that's what you get with nepotism hires.
Right. Okay.
So, what were you guys talking about on the podcast this week?
Partners with Jon Cryer and Tate Donovan.
Oh, sure. I have a lot to talk about on that one.
I think we're good for this week, actually.
Oh, well, see you next time.
Well, I mean, I thought les ananas ne dansent pas, but apparently they like to party pretty hard.
It's really tough to hear about your
It
childhood.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, any of our very specific, that was a very specific reference for Ontario millennials, elder millennials, and Gen X.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry to break it to you guys that Anana was such a,
Scumbag.
like the third act of a music biopic, just kind of going off the rails, and that I gotta say, that would make for a hell of a movie.
Just call it Je suis Anana.
I couldn't. I
Shut up and take my money. Yeah, I mean.
Anyways,
let's close this up.
They'd wheel that cart into your classroom.
Yeah.
And this is what you'd watch.
Yeah.
Tele Francais. Tele Francais.
Bonjour. Hello. Salut.
Bonjour. Oh, yeah. I got them all right.
Well.
C'est formidable. C'est excellent.
Yeah.
C'est magnifique. Sensationnel.
Tele français fantastique. Well.
Any of our Ontario, Canada listeners.
I don't know. He's been memed. He's the internet.
He's been memed.
The internet knows on enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's it for partners.
Yeah.
Great joining the two of you as always to chat about one of these shows. I'm realizing we've done a lot of mid-90s lately.
Yeah.
It's a very long time since we've done an 80s show.
Yeah.
I make no guarantee.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah. I make no guarantees
it's been a lot
about
of 90s.
Yeah, no guarantees about what our next episode is going to be after this one, but I wouldn't mind trying to make it an 80s show.
Okay.
We'll see if we can do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note,
so long, everyone.
Bonjour, allô, salut. Lisez parler avec nous.
That Was a Show is created and hosted by Brynn Byrne, Andrew Barry Helmer, and myself, Aaron Yeger. It's a production of Radio Gizmo in Toronto, Canada. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. Follow us on Instagram and tell your friends about it. That Was a Show?
Radio Gizmo.